Welcome back, friends. You're just in time for the Johnny Brew Show.
What's going on, everybody? My name is John Brookhagen, host of the Johnny Brew Show, and welcome to another spectacular episode as we continue with Red Wave 22, getting to know your conservative candidates from right here in Clark County as well as all of Nevada. First things first, this episode is brought to you by Infinity of the Math Institute. Play tape. So, there you go, Infinity of the Math Institute. Don't get more math problems, get solutions. You could reach them at themathinstitute.com or just hit them up on any of the social medias. Google Infinity of the Math Institute 768-1777. The other thing I need you to do is I need you to subscribe. I need you to hit the bell so that way you can keep up to date with everything we're doing, because we are bringing you candidates by the bushelful. So you're going to have to keep up in order to, otherwise you're going to fall behind and then you're going to have to watch me for like 6 straight hours, and you don't want to do that, right? All right, so moving on. Today we are lucky enough to have Assembly 19 candidate, Charlie De La Paz, formerly founder of Power to Parent on. Welcome.
That's right. Thank you.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
I'm sure you know we had Erin Phillips on about 3 weeks ago.
Yes. My girl.
Yeah, and we had her because you were supposed to be on in January, and then I got sick.
Yep.
And then, so we rescheduled for February. You got ill.
Yep.
You gave us Erin, thank goodness, because Erin did such a good job.
Oh, she did. She did awesome.
And we learned a lot about Power to Parent, which gives us a good background for today's episode. And now here we are at the end of February, and it's all working out.
That's right. We're back.
All right, so tell us, first of all, how's the campaign going? When did you announce, and what has happened since then? What's that like?
Yeah. Okay, so it's going great. First of all, it's very exciting, and I'm actually having a lot of fun. I have watched everyone campaign for years and thought, boy, that looks like a grind. And surprisingly, it's been really fun, and it's been good. And I announced, officially 4 weeks ago, around the time that Annie Black said that she was going to run for her congressional race. So I thought, okay, well, it opened up, and I think I'm going to go for it.
So Assembly District 19 is Annie Black's former district.
Correct.
And it also, if I'm not mistaken, it's the most contested Republican. I mean, we got a couple of Republican primaries that we're going to be watching.
Right.
But this seems to be like one of the most contested seats. And it also seems like the primary is the election.
Yes.
It's going to be a red district. We should have no problem in the general election. So who are you running against?
Yeah, so I have, there's an attorney in Henderson in the new district division that occurred. They scooped in a little part of Henderson. So.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I was just looking at this. It's Moapa, Mesquite, and Henderson.
Correct.
It's almost like saying it's, Reno, Carson City. And I mean, like,
we're a little spread out.
Yeah, I mean, are they even connected by a stripe, or is it like...
Yeah, no, so it's funny because there's land mass in between Mesquite and Moapa Valley, but this is where we do our grocery shopping. This is where we do a lot of our shopping, for all of us residents out there. So Mesquite feels like home, and then we do have, it goes all the way around Lake Las Vegas.
Oh,
and then takes out a part of that, but we don't pick up Lake Las Vegas, but then it takes a part of Henderson that butts up to Boulder City.
So it goes through Lake Las Vegas, and then when you get into the town of Lake Las Vegas, it takes
it doesn't take any of those residents. Yeah, it kind of goes around it. So it's kind of funny, but...
That doesn't seem logical. Were you in charge of redistricting?
I wish I was.
You'd have done it different?
I may have done it a little different.
I'm a mathematician. I would love to see do it by population.
Yeah.
In order. Like,
Yeah.
stop, like, cutting up the streets and what's red and what's blue, and let's just get, all right, boom, boom, boom. Like, couldn't we just chop it up into a grid?
I wish we could. I mean, Vegas, in Southern Nevada is really set up in a great grid, right? The way
Already,
that our
right.
streets are. Yeah, I wish.
Right, it's not
but-
like Long Island where people get so lost. But
Oh,
you
no.
get into you get into Manhattan, you got all the avenues up and down, you got all the streets
Yeah.
left and right, and
Yes.
it's really easy to navigate.
Yeah.
We
I
should
wish.
be able to do it in Las Vegas.
We should.
We have all little quadrants as it is.
Maybe
At
things will
least-
change. Maybe they'll change.
Yeah, how are we going to change that? Red Wave 22?
Yes.
All right. Well, first things first, let's get started. You grew up in Las Vegas. You were born in Mexico?
No, my mother was born in Mexico.
Your mother was born in Mexico, and you were born...
Yes. So I was a military brat. So my
Gotcha.
parents met here in Las Vegas, and then my father was on ROTC for BYU. So I'm a BYU baby.
And does that also make you a Mormon?
That makes me a Mormon BYU baby from the Church of Jesus Christ of
Rolls
Latter-day
right
Saints.
off the tongue.
Yes.
You should add that to your title.
Oh, yeah.
And so go ahead. So you,
So
you're a military brat.
Yeah, so then pretty much right away, my dad was finished by the time I was born, went to Germany. My sister was born in Germany.
Really?
She got to,
But
she
on
gets
an Air
to say
Force
that
base.
on the base.
So she could still be president.
Yes, she can.
Okay.
Yes.
Just clearing that up.
Yeah. Maybe the politics will run through all of us. So came back here when I was 5, and I went right into kindergarten. So I'm a K through 12 graduate here in the Clark County School District.
Really? And then what was the school experience like compared? I mean, obviously you have a different perspective as a child as opposed to an adult, especially an advocate such as yourself. But I mean, what are some of the things that you noticed about going to school in Clark County in the late 80s and the entirety of the 90s? Because Clark County School District used to be a premier school district back when you were in kindergarten.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had small class sizes, I had a pretty good experience growing up in the district. I wasn't the very best student, just putting that out there like that. But I did have a good experience in school. We had all the programs that we don't have anymore. We had CTE. We had career and tech education.
We called it BOCES over in New York.
Oh, okay.
But same thing, learning how to weld, be a mechanic, do all these kinds of things.
Yep, we had those programs, which I severely miss. I know that we're bringing some of that back, thankfully, but even home ec, my friends,
Technology.
I didn't have home ec, but my friends did, and they were sewing stuff, and I was a theater nerd, so I was like,
Were you a singer?
in the Thespian Society, and yes,
Oh
singer, would sing, do the school plays and the musicals.
Jesse Law was on and we played a
I
song.
always tell Jesse we need to do a duet. I always tell him.
I'll play the guitar.
Ahora? Right now?
No. The producer's saying no. Maybe at the end of the episode.
Right,
let's see what happens.
We'll see.
Do you know any
That was
classic
good.
rock? Because Jesse was right down with my Alice in Chains, so it was a real easy pickup.
Yes. Now, I don't know if I'll remember Alice in Chains lyrics,
How about
but
Pink Floyd?
I love me some Pink Floyd.
Oh, you know the words to Wish You Were Here?
I believe I might be able to do that.
Stay tuned. If I don't offend Charlie or our beautiful
let's
producer, maybe we'll get a little song at the end here.
Oh, shoot.
Because Nora was on a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and he's dying to do a song too. We ran out of time. He's a very busy man, and
Are there a lot of singers and races right now?
apparently, and amazingly, I went over time when I was interviewing him, so I wasn't able to play a song with him.
She's laughing.
Oh. All right, so and then all of the 90s you were going to, in the CCSD, you went to Cimarron?
I did.
Is
I
that
graduated
correct?
from there. Uh-huh.
And you were a theater junkie, and you said they had a lot of the programs.
Yeah.
1991 was the last time Clark County School District began the year fully staffed.
No
Did you know that?
way.
Can you believe you?
No, I believe it. That makes sense.
It's a good stat, though,
It
for
is
you to
a great
use, right?
stat. No, it is a great stat because I remember even when I was in high school that there were numbers, after September, October, probably after count day, where we had, 500 teacher vacancies. Now we know that's like tripled at this
Right.
point. But I do remember starting the school years like that.
They just came out with the transfer thing for next year, and
Yeah.
I think there's 1,500 or 1,600
That's what I've seen last.
transfer requests, which isn't officially a vacancy, kind of like the way this new way we calculate unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
If we calculated unemployment the same way we did in 1989, we would have 32% unemployment.
Right.
But of course, we're bragging that we only have 5% of unemployment, even though
Correct.
Arby's is closing at 6 p.m. because they don't have any employees.
And all my Starbucks.
Oh, my God.
They close or they don't open. Yeah. Anyway.
Conservative shops at Starbucks. Strike one. Oh, here we go, man.
Here we go.
All right, so you were a theater junkie. Tell me about your theater a little bit.
Oh, goodness. Okay, so ninth grade. For ninth grade, I did go to the Las Vegas Academy of Performing Arts.
Right,
So
LVA.
I went to LVA, so I started there, did some theater there. I was also a Spanish major. And so after that, I really wanted to try what I thought was the real high school experience. And I switched to Cimarron. Well, I went to Palo Verde and then Cimarron. I've been to all the high schools. So, and it was just weird because my home was like on the dividing line. So when they created Palo Verde and then, it was a brand new school. So anyways, I ended up at Cimarron, but I did theater at each high school every year. I lettered in theater. I had the graduation chords. I didn't do well in the rest of school, but I did super good in
really
theater.
Good in theater.
Yes.
And then did you try to continue with that at all? Have you tried out for anything? Or
I did some
volunteered for
community. I ended up writing a musical.
Really?
So 99 to 2000 wrote this musical with 4 or 5 other people.
And this when you were like 19, 20 years old?
I was 17 and 18. So
Wow.
that whole experience between 17 and 18. And we had 11 performances at the Summerlin Theater.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So the year after I graduated, that's
What
when
was
we
it
finally
about?
had it. Oh, it's about small town life and losing parents and what this girl goes through during that time in her life, and had all these songs that we wrote.
Well, I got some pictures from you from high school. I don't know if you know. I was raiding a vault.
Oh, no.
What do we got here? I think we got pictures of you at junior prom.
Oh, yes. This is the date where it looks like I'm with Leonardo DiCaprio. Oh, that one's my senior prom.
I was going to say.
Yes. So this is my senior. My dad was the DJ at my senior prom. Okay, so this is my junior prom, and that is where everyone thought, they would stop us in the restaurant and at the show and say, he looks like Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, good for you.
Yeah. Yes. Lots of fun pictures.
And then moving on, you ended up graduating, and then I understood that you had a lot of babies. You got married.
A lot of babies.
How many babies did you have?
So I got married at 19, so I was pretty young. I have 4 kids.
Wow.
My oldest is 16. She'll be 17 soon, and she's graduating from high school next year. And then my second one will be graduating the year after.
My oldest is graduating high school this year as well.
Yeah, great.
Crazy.
It is really
You
crazy.
must be old.
We're old. Yeah.
You look good. I don't know about me.
Nah, come on.
So then you got married. You had 4 kids. You wrote your musical, and then while you were doing this, right before you had kids and stuff, you were looking at education, and you became a substitute teacher.
Yeah.
How'd that work out? Because as of I think it was yesterday, they said that anybody who has a heartbeat, and a diploma, a high school diploma or a GED.
I caught that. Yes.
We're very dry here on the Johnny Bruce Show. But yeah, anybody who has a heartbeat and a GED or a high school diploma can now be a substitute teacher at CCSD.
Yeah. So I have an opinion on this. Number one, I was going to college for education here in Nevada, and I went through, I did a bunch of the general ed classes for that.
Like philosophy and history and English.
Right. And then I did a couple of the education classes where I had to put hours in the classroom. And I got through a few of those. And then I had my first baby. And at that time, I applied to become a substitute teacher. And so I worked for the district for 3 years.
So you had the flexible schedule so you could be a mom and take a couple of days here and there.
Yep. And so I did that, but it was during that time of being a substitute teacher that I saw so many red flags, and I was super worried about the state of our education at that point, and my kids weren't there yet.
And this is only like 4 years after you were a part of the school system. So was it a new perspective, or was it like over that 5 years was when we saw the massive decline?
Well, yeah, and I think one of the first things was the shortages is something that I had noticed just from growing up here, and when you become a parent, your perspective changes. So when I flipped over and became, an employee of the school district and saw things, that's obviously I wasn't thinking of anything like that when I was a teen. So I basically saw that and saw some red flags with the way that the system was run. I mean, just to get my substitute license was such a show,
right.
and just such a process that was ridiculous. It was frustrating to begin with. And then, but then I was hired, and it's totally funny because in the training that we had to do, I think it was like a week-long training or something, it was very stringent. It was. And I thought, okay, the training's like pretty good.
And they have high standards.
I felt like they were pretty good. And then I worked for the district, and then now we fast forward to today. And
20 years later.
I cannot believe the loss in standards.
Right.
Because I don't want someone just to come in and substitute.
Right. We don't need a warm body. We need an educator.
We don't need, that's more like a babysitter. I mean, they've got to have classroom management. They have to have a desire to teach. I mean, they have to, there's so many skills that I learned just in those first education courses and then I had to work in the classroom before I even became a substitute. So if these kids, because it's going to be a lot of kids,
so you actually took
like,
classes and stuff. You had classroom experience in order to qualify to be a sub.
Right, I did. And so it's a shame. And it's very worrisome, especially for parents.
Well, also, I mean, I don't have the numbers on it, but I feel like I'm noticing more like teacher-student either sexual interactions or offerings and stuff like this. And I could only imagine that would be exacerbated by such a policy.
Oh, I absolutely believe this is a danger, especially because it seems as though there's no more cell phone policy within the classrooms. And now, I don't know what their exact policy is today, but I do know that my two teenagers who are in high school, they are not told to put their phones away anymore. They're not told that they're not allowed to be on them. So that worries me.
As if we've given up.
Right, exactly. Like they can't fight the issue. But teachers, from what I understand, are not even to take them away.
Well, yeah, because parents are more upset if you take a student's phone than the fact that the student is on TikTok when they're supposed to be learning math.
Right. So, and hopefully that's where the parenting skills come in, and then the child is warned not to do that.
But we can't legislate
parents.
But
we can't, and we shouldn't. So, so basically I feel like that does open up the door for that. We had a huge problem with that back in, I think it was about 15, 16, around that time. And where we had a lot of offenders, come to light in the school district. Power to Parent with Erin and I and Deborah were showing up at meetings for that like crazy, trying to get them to secure a policy. And so what do? They put in the background check system for parents.
Right, and that's my question going to be, is it going to be harder to become a parent volunteer than it is to become a substitute teacher? Like you can't come down and tutor or babysit or watch the kids get some exercise in a latchkey program or something like that.
Right.
You got to go through all these background checks and everything. And meanwhile, now if you have a high school diploma, you could actually be in the classroom for 7 straight hours.
Right. A lot that doesn't make sense.
And then if we have, with the transfer season coming up, 1,500 vacancies, you're looking at like 5 or 6 people per school.
Yes.
I mean, that's a lot of people in every single school that's missing. And then if you talk about, lower socioeconomic places having more of the problems than the better, more affluent neighborhoods, then I would think that the affluent neighborhoods are only missing 2 or 3 teachers, while the lower economic schools are missing 8 or 9 teachers. And you're talking about a staff of 50 people. If you're short 8 or 9 teachers, you're approaching 20% of your staff to prevent fights, to enforce cell phone rules, to try to get the kids to not bully each other and try to be a positive influence.
I mean, honestly, we need our deans back. We need our deans back in the schools. That's one thing. This is one of a million things. But
right. What was that? Like, I've been screaming to get rid of this administrative state. I believe we have too many curriculum writers, test writers.
The testing's insane.
The whole CCSD, CCEA, Vegas, PBS conglomerate going on over there. They got plenty of people making a lot of money, $80,000, $100,000. And then we have teachers making $40,000.
Yeah.
There's no shortage. They're not screaming, "Oh my God, we need more curriculum writers. Please come. We're paying $110,000 a year." I wonder why they don't have a shortage there.
Yeah, well, that's where the money is.
All right. And we're going to get into power to parent a lot. So, but I just wanted to finish up your bio. We talked about you being a Mormon, Church of Latter-day Saints. You had your babies, you got married. And then, yes, 2014, while you are a co-founder of Power to Parent, it's actually Erin Phillips' brainchild. And when she came up with these ideas, did you know her before that? Or did you meet her through that?
We got to meet through that, which was great. And really at that time, when the school district, the superintendent at the time had proposed this comprehensive sex ed.
Which one?
It was Skorkowski.
And
he proposed to bring in the curriculum from a group called CCSD. And it was abhorrent. So it was teaching, and hopefully I can say, but masturbation at the kindergarten level was one of the things that tipped off everybody at first, right? And so then it would
I remember there was like a book, I touched myself.
Lots of things, lots of different parts of the curriculum, but basically putting it in at every grade level. And so with that, there was a lot of parents that showed up and fought back. So, at the largest meeting, I want to say there was at least 2,000 parents.
And this is in 2014. Wow.
Skorkowski, kind of came out and said, you know what, forget it, I'm pulling it.
He relented.
He did. And so a group of parents, met in a living room. Erin was one of them. There was a few others, and they at that point decided, hey, let's go ahead and form. Very quickly after that, I was voted in as a board member, and I wasn't sure what we were doing. Right. I was one of the people out there fighting. My uncle is also heavily involved politically. It's just him and I, because no one else can stand the political people, in our family. But with her and I, we got to meet very shortly thereafter the forming of Power to Parent, and look at all these years later. So we've gotten a lot done.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And so we had a different president at the time, Heidi Wixom. And then a year later, when Erin became the president, then we actually formed as a 501. What were yours?
So this is a nonprofit, not a political PAC.
Right. We were just a C4 at the time, so we could act politically, and then we became a C3. And so we did that when Erin became the president.
And then, so it wasn't necessarily like you and Erin Phillips in a basement.
Oh, no.
It was 2,000
this is
parents.
Parents want a group, right?
And
so
they guys all joined in,
together.
And they asked you and Erin to lead the group.
Well, they had, this was a bunch of moms at first. And then with them having this association with my uncle, and my uncle saying, hey, call Charlie. And then I got invited to join the board.
And then tell me about the evolution. It started with the sexual education in 2014. You guys became an official group in 2015.
About 16,
Now your eyes are wide open and you're looking at the situation. What else did you notice besides the sex ed that you realized, good thing I got on board here? Because Erin Phillips was telling us a couple of weeks ago that they realized you guys realized in 2014 that you're late to the game.
Oh my!
Like you guys should have been here, and now we're looking at it like, oh my God, we're late to the game. You were the ones on it, but meanwhile, you guys are saying you were even late to the game.
I'll give a little bit of something that I've been thinking about lately. So yes, it was our research about what was going on with parental rights around the United States. But at first we had started with the sex ed, and that led to, oh my goodness, there's a real problem where the government is stepping in as the parent of our children, and we're not seeing it. Definitely in education, but also in policy and legislation. And Canada was one of the very first ones that we noticed, in Australia, and then in different parts of Europe.
And when you say like try to take over the parenting, give me some examples of what you're referring to.
Just doing these things where, let's say in the school district, where they're passing a policy allowing a child to do something without the parental knowledge, like without them even having to consent or anything like that.
Like what?
We've had, the biggest thing I can talk about is always sex ed. So what they were trying to do at the time was, if you remember back in school, you had the permission slip.
Right.
And you have to opt your child into the class.
Right.
Okay, so it's the opt-in versus opt-out argument. With that opt-in, we realized that around the United States, that these groups were these special interest groups coming in, and they are trying to remove that permission slip. Because if a parent doesn't have to expressly sign on that to opt them in, then they can just send the notification as a flyer,
Right.
and we
'Cause you
all
have
miss it.
So you have a
and-
third of parents who are saying, okay, I want to do that. You have a third of parents who are saying, I don't want to do it. And you have a third of parents who may or may not be paying
might miss it.
attention
Sure.
or whatnot. So
Sure.
all of a sudden, you're going from one third getting this specialized sexual training in elementary school.
Right.
And then they change it to an opt-out clause.
Yes.
And so that turns into 2/3 of the population.
Yes, and it opened the door. So it opened the door to then introduce and get the curriculum in that they wanted, and we've seen it all over the United States. So one of the things that Power to Parent has really, really worked on protecting is protecting that opt-in status. We are now one of only 2 states that maintain that permission slip.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's surprising because it seems like we tend to be more progressive than other states.
Right, but Power to Parent came in at the right time, and
it's because of you.
And I would say it is because of Power to Parent, and we have actually fought and won that on the legislative level twice.
Right.
So.
And I understand now, in order to run for your campaign, you've left Power to Parent. I'm
Yes.
sure you still talk to
Oh,
your
yes.
friends over
Oh,
there.
yeah.
But and just recently, Erin was telling us about a ballot initiative.
Yes.
In order to, champion the school choice movement.
Yes.
And now they're being sued. And do you have any details? I've been trying to read about it. I'm not as familiar about why they're getting sued.
Yes. So we anticipated that, absolutely. And so I know that the women are on top of that. And
Can you tell me what it is?
Yeah. So basically, and we've only seen, I think, one article about this so far because it's brand new. So again, it was anticipated. Basically, there are entities out there who do not want school choice. If you read the article, Roy Reed is one of them in the Rogers Foundation, and they are trying to stop the ability for this to get on the ballot.
Right.
To bring
That
it to the
much I
voters.
understood.
To bring it to the voters. And so they'll do what they can. There is a lot behind the scenes that we'll be working now to be able to combat that. And
Right.
there's people put in place, and we've been ready and anticipating it.
Because
so.
getting a ballot initiative isn't easy. I mean, there's a
Right.
lot of hoop between signatures and
That's
doing
it.
everything proper. And obviously, we got an election coming up in 6 months. I know Erin was very excited about getting it on this ballot,
Yes.
not in 2024. But, is this just, do you think maybe either they have a legal leg to stand on, or do you think they're just trying to play games so you can't get it on this ballot? Kind of like
Right.
Trump with the wall. We've stalled for 2 years. He finally got started on the wall.
Right.
But then by the time he got voted out, he wasn't able to finish it because of, on the front end, those 2 years were wasted.
Right, of course. Stall tactic is always used on both sides, I
Right.
feel like. So I believe that it's both of those things. And again, we're ahead of the game in the way that we're always looking at other states to see what they've done. This is not the first time this has happened. There is, especially with Valeria Gurr, and all of her work with Nevada school choice, she's well aware as well about what goes on in other states with school choice when they try to pass and do it this way or legislatively.
Right.
And we're always working on this issue. So again, it was
And that's the power of Power to Parent,
Yes.
or Valeria working with the American
Yes.
Federation of Parents,
Of
is it?
Children.
The American Federation of Children. You guys got Power to Parent. I think you've
Yes.
grown to 5 or 6 different states now.
14 chapters across the United States.
Beautiful. And that's my point, is that gives you guys the wherewithal to say, all right, they tried to pull this in South Carolina. What worked, what didn't work, as
Exactly.
opposed to you and Erin just being moms saying,
Yes.
oh, rah, let's get this on the initiative, without the proper
Yeah.
experience to get run over by these political activist types.
No, absolutely. And, Erin and Deborah now are taking over, and they are doing an awesome job with this. So I just hope people will support the initiative. A lot of money has to be raised for it in order to fight the legal issues. So, and then if we can get this on the ballot, it's overwhelmingly 70 something % of parents in Nevada across the board. That's across party lines. It's across every demographic.
Right.
We want it.
Well, and it's odd because there are certain things such as school choice or voter ID. These are universally
Yes.
nonpartisan agreements unless you're on the fringes of one side or the other.
Right.
I don't understand why there's so much pushback, or is it that the squeaky wheel gets the oil?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
All right, and then moving on from school choice, you work with Valeria Girl. We're talking
Yeah.
about you guys were instrumental in, there was an awakening during the COVID pandemic.
yeah.
Whether you're talking about, kids not being able to go to school, kids being forced to wear masks or stay apart from each other or not interact, or, or even parents observing what their children were learning and the kind of language and stuff that their teachers were explaining to their kids. I think we have some video of you at a peaceful protest. I don't know why. We used to just say protest, and then if it was violent, then we would now we gotta
maybe it's a riot at that
categorize
point.
everything.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, this is you at a distance learning protest demanding that CCSD schools open. This is the entire news report. Play tape.
28,000 students home due to COVID-19 concerns. While some are for the plan, those against it took to the streets today to demand change. Sasha Loftus joining us live from CCSD headquarters tonight, where today's peaceful protest took place.
Well, Brian, this is one of the most controversial issues our community has seen since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, while some people are for the current distant learning plan, others who say they are not, they want their children back in the classroom, they stood outside CCSD headquarters here today to demand change. This impassioned group gathered Thursday with a pointed purpose. They want their kids back in the classroom.
Their parents are struggling, the teachers are struggling. It's the hardest thing I've ever done.
Local organization Power to Parents' message was multifold, citing special education struggles and a lack of internet resources.
For a lot of families out there, this is causing absolute pain.
Parents, teachers, and state leaders also say CCSD just isn't doing enough since virtual learning started on Monday. They hope their presence will encourage the district to rethink its original plan and pivot towards an option that benefits everyone.
Right now, the distance learning is not working. And so if we can have all of our leaders and elected officials come together and figure out a way to get them back into the classroom.
Though the distance learning decision was made due to COVID-19 concerns, those here believe safety and in-person instruction can go hand in hand.
You see districts all across the country who are tackling the problem.
And they say they won't back down.
We can do this
until they see something done.
We need to open our schools and we need to get them back at the playground and in the classroom.
Now, the CCSD Board of Trustees did hold its virtual regular meeting tonight. They discussed a myriad of things, including 2 bills that they drafted for the Nevada legislature. One touches on internet connectivity. A proposed legislation would seek to provide funding to connect all of Nevada's K-12 schools. Again, that will be submitted to the Nevada legislature ahead of the next session.
All right. And you see, first of all, you notice, this is supposed to be a temporary problem. It was originally 15 days to slow the spread, right? And now we're investing hundreds of millions of dollars in getting these kids these Chromebooks and stuff when it's supposed to be just a short-term thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
And now they're fighting for all these things. How did your protest, do you think it made any difference, or what was the results?
Yeah, it made a huge difference. We had an amazing turnout at that protest, and it was really to open schools safely was the real message there. And that's what we wanted. We saw so many detrimental side effects to those children and my children and Erin's children. And
right.
There's 33 children on our board between 5 of us at that time.
Right.
Okay, so we have a lot of kids there. So
you know firsthand. You're not just talking from some glass,
That's right. And so with that said, even we watched our own children suffer, and we knew that our children had to get back into the schools. And so we really rallied and got parents out there to do that. And then within talks and continuing the work behind the scenes, then the schools were able to open to a certain degree, right?
Right.
Now, I will say that out in the rurals was a little bit of a different story. Because what we have out there in the rurals, which would be where I'm from in Moapa Valley, we have what is called a CAB committee. And a CAB is a community education engagement, something like that. So it's a long one.
Right.
So they act more as like a town council and fight legislative issues and things like this that affect our little towns. And so it's the voice of our community, if you will. And we really
Which
wanted...
is easier in a smaller town as well.
It is. And a lot of our rural communities out here, even within the Clark County area, have their CAB committees. And so we got together, I got together with them, and we discussed keeping our schools open, never shutting our schools out there down, because even though we're a part of CCSD, our transmission rates were so much lower and very different.
And also when you talk about stuff like, what is the tracking devices, or, like, like if you were to get sick and you're in a small town, you can say, oh, well, I talked to the producer, I talked to Johnny Brew, and then, but when you're in a metropolitan area, that those things don't work as well.
Right. So what we did there is, using some of the same ways in which we had this peaceful protest, we also lobbied, for lack of a better word, the school district over and over again, and we were able to keep the schools open the entire time out there. So it was 4 schools in all of Clark County School District remained open that entire time.
And that was your 4.
And that was our 4.
Well, good for you. And then were you going to school board meeting? I mean, even say you guys are bringing, hundreds of people to talk about opening the schools and everything, while the trustees that evening are having virtual meetings, when there's only 7 of them. I mean, like, the whole thing is baffling.
Yeah, well, and we've seen that across the board, right, throughout all of the rules that have come up from this pandemic, and so a lot of rules that don't make sense. So we were dealing with that, and we all went out there and met. And that's why we did it outside, and we asked people to have masks on, and we asked for schools to be open safely. At that point, that's where we were at. We just needed to get kids in schools.
And this was June of 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So this is still, we were only 3 months into this. Yeah. We still weren't sure, we might have had a hint the masks don't work, but we didn't have the scientific
we didn't know what was
evidence.
Coming, did we? Yeah, we did, and we also didn't know what was coming.
And we were conspiracy theories for saying this might happen.
Right.
And then it actually ended up happening. And I was going to say, before the COVID pandemic, as we entered this age of smartphones and video games, but whatever, the past 10 years before the pandemic, the whole goal was to get the kids out of the house.
Right.
And then for 2 years, we were forced to keep the kids in the house, which was the opposite of what we were trying to accomplish as parents.
Absolutely. And we saw and are seeing now the mental health effect that has had on our children. Right. It's really bad.
And it feels like a seasonal change.
Absolutely.
Like as in, this wasn't just something that we dealt with. This is something that has affected the dynamic of our children, of education, and generationally, this, we could be seeing the results of this.
And we will. Absolutely, we will. And it's been very hard. It's been a very hard road and journey with our children. It's been very frustrating for parents on many, many levels. And it's hard to see your kids suffering when they're just trying to do their education, right?
Could you imagine an 8-year-old scared to death of catching COVID, wearing a mask still to school even though they don't have to, and they're literally scared of something that, it's like the boogeyman.
Right, absolutely.
I think it's, scary. And how do you feel about, say, just masks in general on our kids? And
okay, so I mean, for me,
they just got lifted just about a week ago, but there's organizations trying to get them reinstituted.
Right. If
Didn't mean to make you laugh.
No, if you're trying to reinstitute a mask after a mandate has been lifted, then you are not for choice. And that's what America is. We are about choice. And so for me, if you as a parent would like to send your child to school in a mask, I support that. Now, I will not send my children to school in a mask. But if a parent does feel more comfortable in that sense, then I absolutely support their choice. But do we bring a mandate back, or we start creating rules and policy for that? Absolutely not.
Well, I mean, I tell the kids, number one, you listen to your parent. I mean, I teach kids all the time, and I'm always telling them what to do because, Mr. Bruno is best now that he's 45, not when he was their age. But I know what the mistakes are, and I'm trying to make them avoid making the same mistakes I've made. And I tell them all the time, I go, the single thing is, if I ever contradict your parents, you listen to your parents first.
Yes, good.
And unless I'm contradicting your parents, you better listen to me.
Right.
So hopefully, we don't see masks come back in school. I think they never should have been in there. And now we're having this increased problem with violence. I don't know if I'm guessing you have been watching the news, between Las Vegas High School, the poor girl getting beat up while she's sitting at her mat.
Oh, that one was really hard to watch.
Yeah,
and I couldn't watch.
And there's other one, Chaparral. They just had a shooting where a couple of students got shot. 5 people altogether got shot. And I'm hearing through the Johnny Brew Show, and we're going to be doing, our producer actually, it was her great idea. We're going to want to have a town hall forum where I'm going to be bringing parents and teachers as well.
That's great.
To come on for 5-10 minutes, tell their story really quick, because these are going to be the stories that the Board of Trustees did nothing about. These are going to be the stories of parents who already tried to reach out through the regular channels, tried to go to the school board and spoke, wrote to their principal, reached out to their vice principal, and they were unable to get a resolution.
Right.
So we're going to be compiling all those in April. And if you're a parent or a teacher who has had such an experience where you've tried to do it the right way and went to the school board meeting, or you wrote to your superintendent or your trustee or your principal, and you got nothing in return, those are the people we want to hear from in April. Give us a text at 702-501-5304. Leave us your name, your number, and a brief description of what you went through. So that way when we start scheduling these things, we're going to bring you guys in and we're going to record it, put it on for posterity. So that way when people say they didn't know, they have no excuse. We'll have it on the record. With that said, I forgot my point. I just wanted to start plugging our great idea.
Yeah.
What were we talking about?
No, with the violence in
schools.
schools.
With the violence in schools. And this is something that was happening. I have some video of you on the news from about a year ago addressing this before what's been going on in the past couple months. Play tape.
Local group is calling for the end of the Clark County School District Police. Some students of color say they still feel targeted by officers on campus. 13 Action News reporter Jeremy Chen joins us live at CCSD headquarters, where a demonstration to disband school police is taking place right now. And Jeremy, some parents say this is all a bad idea.
Absolutely, definitely. There is certainly both sides to the equation, and this isn't the first time there have been calls to disband or completely defund CCSD PD, most notably during the George Floyd protests last June. Now you can take a look over here. You can see there is already a kind of a presser already underway, and demonstrators are already here holding signs pretty much saying they do not want to see police on school campuses. Now, supporters of this call have actually put together some numbers. Nearly 140 students were surveyed here in Clark County, where more than half said they knew of another student or perhaps themselves had a negative interaction with school police. Of those students, 2/3 of black and brown students surveyed said the same thing. Those interactions students describe include excessive force with pepper spray and verbal abuse or harassment. They wanted instead to see more investment in school counselors and mental health resources. However, the group Power to Parents says removing officers from school campuses is a bad idea, saying it raises security concerns and puts too much responsibility on teachers and administrators who may not be equipped to handle situations like fights. Now, we do expect to hear more from the demonstrators later on, as well as CCSD. They tell me they're going to have a response ready, hopefully, by our 5 p.m. newscast.
All right. I mean, could you, now this was a year ago. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing it was over the summer, so a year and a half ago even, during the whole BLM protests and stuff and defund the police. Then if you look at what's been going on in the past 2 months, could you imagine if they were successful? I'm watching these fights where teachers and students are watching a girl get knocked almost unconscious, could be to death.
Yes.
Everybody's saying, and then they say, oh, well, as teachers, we have to wait for, proper people. They're trying to get rid of the proper people. What would happen at these football games? They're trying to get rid of pepper spray at football games when there's riots and brawls and fights. And what if these people succeeded and they, you were out there fighting for this, every single issue, you've been on the front lines. And, it's quite impressive. What do you think would have happened to CCSD this year if they were successful in what they were trying to accomplish?
I could not imagine how bad it would be now, even though it is so bad. I mean, honestly, people would be more hurt. Part of this issue is the discipline issues that we have, these policies that have changed through the trustees. And we are seeing so much more violence now. And if we didn't have the police, this would be so much worse. I don't even want to imagine what that would look like.
I should have had this ready to go, but I only thought about it just now. Do you remember like 3 months ago, there was a CCSD policeman who was breaking up a fight, and he like bear hugged or got the guy who was doing most of the attacking, and as he took him down, he like protected the guy's head from hitting, and then they took a still shot to make it look like he was choking the kid, when really, if you watch the video, he was protecting the kid's head from smashing against the floor during the takedown. And these are the type of things where these CCSD police are literally risking their own lives and their own limbs in order to protect people, because teachers aren't doing it. And then they're going to take a still shot of you in order to try to get you in trouble. You were married to a cop even. I mean, how do you feel about this attack on police? I mean, we haven't even gotten into your campaign. We're still doing the background on your education. And obviously you guys know that education is where I like to spend the most time. But how do you feel now transitioning into the CCSD police and regular police in general?
Well, I think that we forget that CCSD police are a real entity. Like, they are a real law enforcement agency, and they face things that, our Metro police officers face as well. And so I'm grateful to have them, especially right now when we're seeing an uptick in violence. And then, to go over to our Metro Police Department, what we're seeing is the fact that when these officers are out on the streets, we have so much technology now. So anything can be captured and shown out of context or look like something else. But, I'm super proud of LVMPD and our officers. We are probably one of the best, if not the best trained agency in the entire United States, with the least amount of casualties for our officers. Are we perfect? No, but nothing's perfect. And so, and I have found with that agency that they really address issues quickly, and they work well within the community, especially the area command, where the father of my children serves now. And that is, it's an area where there's a ton of community outreach and a lot of great relationships.
Well, with this violence, and now thankfully we didn't absolve the CCSD police, thank goodness, but you are plugged in. What do you think is the solution to the rampant violence? And it's not only that, we've always had fights, we've always had bullies. This is not new. It's the degree of the detachment from empathy. It's the degree of, they're punching people after they're already knocked out. They keep punching and kicking them. Kids bringing guns to football games, and there's always a big brawl, which spurts into 5 other brawls. I mean, when I was a kid, we used to meet at the playground, and 2 guys would knock each other around a little bit, and it would be very exciting. It's not like that anymore. What do you think would be a possible solution?
I think we have to look at what the problem is. And I think one of the biggest problems here is the size of our district. And obviously policies that are being created, policies that are not being created. And what we have to do is look
at a time. So we have a district that's too big. So you're a proponent of breaking up CCSD into, say, 7 smaller districts?
I think this is the only way to even, I don't even think we have to look at every issue anymore that's inside of the district, because there's hundreds and thousands of them.
And then there's people who detract from that, though, saying that would exacerbate the lower income neighborhoods from being in their own district, and that would
You mean how it is now?
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here.
Don't
attack me.
This one I got to attack on.
Like it is now?
Like it is now.
All right.
We already have this issue. Thank you.
And then you said policies that are being implemented. What do you mean by that?
or not implemented.
We're going to get to that next. What policies are being implemented?
There were changes to the way that the children are disciplined within the schools. And so
we talk about restorative justice a lot, which is an assembly situation, which is what you're running for, not a school board situation. Is that what you're referring to?
Sure, yes.
And what is restorative justice for those who don't know?
Well,
all of you guys know because you watch me every week. But.
Oh, okay, yes. Well, within our school district, if we're looking at trying to restore the person, right? And we see this within the jail system too, this issue that pops up. And so I think that at the core, this is a good idea. However, it is not implemented or executed in a way in which this actually gives restoration.
Right, these means lend to the end that they're desired.
Right. And
it's turning into just let's not suspend anyone and let's not expel anyone.
It's not executed correctly. And so what we're seeing is more of an agenda-driven restorative justice. And that does not provide for what we need. And it is very exacerbated by the school district size because you cannot... It's such a big problem at this point. We're too overwhelmed. We're too overwhelmed. And if you do not give... principals, for example, autonomy to act in, apart from the district, and of
or
course,
enough staff.
Well, and that's part of the problem. So we don't have enough staff. The principals aren't given enough autonomy to act for what's best for their own schools because
and then they're
they can't
forced
be
to
treated
keep
the
the
same.
Kids who get into 3-4 fights. They're 15 years old in 8th grade. They couldn't finish 8th grade 2 years in a row. So now they're a sophomore. Actually, they're in 8th grade though. They're 15 years old.
Well,
and they're getting into fights, and they can't be suspended or they can't be expelled. And CCSD has got this crazy policy where if that person who keeps starting the fights, if you run away from them and they grab you by the hair, pull you back, and start beating on you, the person who got beat gets suspended for being in a fight.
This has happened.
I've seen that many times.
This has happened many times, and I have a lot of parents who call me from Power to, on behalf of Power to Parent. They've called to speak about issues like this that they're facing at the schools, and then me personally, I've helped parents one-on-one to kind of work their way correctly through the system, and then obtain legal if they need to, and so. I am seeing it a lot, and it's terrible. And we have to go back to what the main issue is, and that is the sheer size of the district and how it's creating thousands of problems that are so layered in bureaucracy that how do we ever solve them even one at a time anymore at this point?
Well, you even talk about the school board. They brought it up to put it on the agenda for March, and then that didn't even pass, I don't think. I think... only 3 people voted to pass it, and 4 other people said, no, let's put it off even longer. And parents are literally scared of sending their kids to school Monday.
Right, but they want to talk about changing the mascots of all the schools or whatever it was the other day.
Why aren't they having an emergency? They can't even get it scheduled for the next session. I think they should have an emergency session and say, listen, we have to protect first and foremost, forget about all the woke crap, all the parents crap, all the political. We need to keep our kids safe, number one.
We need to keep our kids safe. But even before that, how come no one can read? Before that, how come, we can go, what about the literacy rate? This report just came out last week about us being, 49th in the nation for education, and that it's even worse, like 48% was in literacy.
Right. And it depends on the metric you're looking at. Doctorates we're 50th. ACT, we're 50th. Graduation rate, we're 47th. And that's because they cheat so bad on those graduation rates. And I know, I can name
I'll tell you why they do, because I've been here in these school districts, or in this school district my whole life. And the fact of the matter is that if, all these people did not receive their diplomas back all the way to when the end of the school year tests were happening. And, what do they do when our rates dropped?
Right.
They said, okay, everyone gets their diplomas back all the way to the 80s. And they gave everyone back their diplomas.
That's crazy.
And then, we have a really good graduation rate now.
Right, I know. And it's baloney. I had a student, I talked about it before. He needed geometry to pass and graduate. He failed the first semester. He failed the second semester. And he walked on that stage.
I have a friend going through the same thing right now.
It lessens the worth of a diploma.
Absolutely.
All right, but you're not running for school. Oh, wait, one more thing.
I am not running for a school board
ever. But I got ahead of myself. You said that we need to break down the school district. We need to get rid of policy that's not working, and then we need to implement a policy. What policy do we need to implement?
I don't even think I can even go to that yet, because we need to get into the school choice issue. Because honestly, to let areas
implement
secede,
a school choice policy.
We've got to have school choice legislation. We have to let parents vote on that. We have to try to get a really solid program in the state of Nevada where parents can use their tax dollars and just send their child to the education that they want. I have 4 kids. Not all of my kids will do well in the same exact education.
All right, but you have 4 kids. How many of your kids go to CCSD? Well, you live up in Mesquite, so that doesn't even count as much.
Yeah, in Logandale. 4 of them are in, but I did homeschool for 6 years.
But my point is, if your kids live in a particular CCSD school district, or the CCSD is still getting money. Even if they're homeschooling, even if they're going to Bishop Gorman or Lutheran, CCSD's still getting paid for your students.
Yes, they would, and that is something that is argued by the opposition, and they deny it. And it is not so. If you understand the way that the state budgets our money, our tax dollars, the public education system gets to keep around half of what that child is allotted.
Which amounts like $3,500.
Yeah, maybe up to $4,000, and then we take the rest of that money, then that can go with the child, and we can put our kids where we want. I mean, they're getting paid to not have our children in their seats. It's a win-win.
But meanwhile, they still pay a teacher $41,000,
which is a whole nother issue we can go down, which we don't have time for today, I'm sure.
As I foreshadowed, you're not running for school board, and I'm not running for nothing, but I've been plugging myself into these things, and I'm pretty astute to a lot of the issues, and I was considering maybe one day running for school board until I realized that they don't really have much power. I mean, they're really just trying to interpret the laws brought down by the Nevada Assembly.
Sure.
And they're trying to manage the superintendent.
But they do have last say, so they do have a little bit too much power.
You think they have too much power?
I think they still have a little bit too much power, and I think we saw that through the pandemic.
Well, then why aren't you running for school board, since education is obviously your bag?
It's a great question. My passion literally lies within creating law, and that's where I really would like to start. I'm not saying it will never happen, because I don't know what I'll want to do 10 years from now, but right now I want to be in the legislature. I've been lobbying, I want to say lobbying because I was advocating for Nevada families and for education in the legislature, because anybody can be a lobbyist.
Of your experience.
Yeah, so anyone can. I really want people to understand that you can go to the legislature and you can walk in the building and you can talk to your representative whenever you want. You are essentially a citizen lobbyist at that point.
The People's House?
The People's House. Right. And no one should be afraid of it ever.
Unless it's COVID time. Then you're not allowed in the People's House.
Well, that's a whole nother topic.
You know how you could always throw these little things. But
true.
So anybody can go to Carson City, or when it's not in session, go to their local
You can call your representatives. You can email your representatives. You have full access. And people don't understand that.
Does that have a result? Do people write you back and call you back?
Oh, absolutely. And when they don't, you hold them accountable in the elections. That's the message you put out there. But in 2015, that's when Power to Parent started. Erin and I and Deborah went out to the legislature, and we were working on some bills and trying to help improve some bills. And then we came home, and I was bitten by that bug. And I thought, this is amazing. I want to come back. So we've been back. Erin and I became the citizen lobbyists, unpaid, for Power to Parent, and have gone up there every session since and had some really amazing things happen. To be able to get more money for school choice in conjunction with Valedia at Nevada School Choice, and save homeschooling laws in conjunction with Elisa Wall, who was essential to writing some of those laws in 2015 with Mo Dennis.
I've seen Elisa Wall on Facebook and stuff. I don't know much about her.
She is a smart cookie, that one.
Yeah?
So we have the best homeschooling laws in the entire United States.
And that's a large part due to her?
Absolutely.
I got to get her on the show?
Yes, you do.
Elisa Wall.
Yes.
I'm John Brookhagen. Nice to meet you.
She's great. And literally saved the homeschooling laws this last session from even being tampered with at all by the Nevada Department of Education. And so there's been some great things that have happened since we have done this. And again, we're unpaid. Any of you can come and do it with us. So that's right. And now I want to take that experience, because I really developed a love for the law and for developing law, and I want to be in the room where it happens.
Right.
That's what I want to do next.
Well, that's beautiful. And I was looking at your campaign website, and you have 5 main issues that you want to address. So we covered education for 56 minutes.
Yes.
So that's going to give you 30 seconds for the next issues.
Okay, what do I have there? Economy. Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about the economy.
I have the economy.
And what is your experience, and what is it that you want to do as an assemblywoman in Nevada to improve the economy?
All right, so I mean, I keep hitting this, sorry. In a nutshell, I'm a Hispanic woman, and I have the largest Hispanic woman or family probably in Southern Nevada. I don't know if that's true, but we're massive. And so back in the late 70s, my mother and her siblings came over. They were left in the middle of the night by my grandmother in Mexico City. And for 7 years, she came over and made a life, went back, got them, and they all became so successful. We've all lived in Nevada ever since that very day that they all came over. And my family has wonderful businesses from an array of restaurants to hair salons and janitorial supply and janitorial cleanup companies and things like that. And we're really a huge family that contributes to the economy in Nevada. We were all hurt in the pandemic time as well. It was really hard. I have a digital media marketing business that started in 2017, and I lost every client from January down to March 2020. By March, they were gone. And so...
And that's a story that doesn't seem to be being told enough.
No.
I mean, I'm a small business owner. I lost 75% of my clientele.
Oh, it was so difficult. And I mean, with my uncle in the restaurant business, he had to shift and pivot so hard just to keep those doors open. And he had already had 6 locations open at that time and was going to open 2 more. And everything had to get stalled. And
so what can you do as a legislator to fix this?
Yeah, so I think now we're in recovery, right? And hopefully with the new governor, that we're in real recovery at that point, and we do things in the legislature to be able to protect small businesses specifically, which I think is just the backbone of our economic society here. And then, but furthermore, give them opportunities to grow, and then even more so, get corporations to come back. But the reason that, one of the reasons that's a problem is because of the education here.
I was, you read my mind.
It all goes back to that. But and obviously that's not the only reason. But what can we do in order to become a competitive state again, to get those corporations back? Right. Nevada is a beautiful state, and we thrive. Our economy can just thrive. I mean, look at your pictures here. This is
pictures. Those are windows.
This is the outside. I'm like Vanna White. So this is beautiful to me, and I want to be able to keep our state thriving in our economy.
And windows.
They're windows. Yes, I'm a witness. They're windows. And then of course.
A lot of Republican groups, they are going around to conservative candidates, making them sign a no new tax pledge. Have you signed any such pledge?
I have not signed the pledge. There is some language issues that I have with it, and I want to be a part of the talks that happen. I don't want to be cut out of the bargaining by signing that at the moment. So
you're saying that if you sign that, all of a sudden you're a hard no, which means you're not able to be elected and then become part of a committee to say, let's discuss this.
We need to discuss
things.
They
know that you're just going to be like, no.
There are things that need to be discussed. There are things that have to be.
So if we're going to lose about it, if we have a majority Democrat, heavens no, still. But if we did, and you were to sign this pledge, you're saying that your input would either be invalidated or not even...
Well, you don't even get a seat at the table at that point. And you know what? We need to have... Right now, we are trying to have that majority, right? And we are trying to swing seats back and get seats back for even both Assembly and Senate. And at this point, we need to be talking. So I feel like that's important for me right now.
You also mentioned, first of all, the police. We talked about that quite a bit. Is there anything you wanted to add about police in general? I mean, we got a big sheriff's race. Our current sheriff is running for governor.
Sure.
Murders are up 75% over the past year. But like you said, it could be it could be better.
Right.
And it could be worse.
Right.
We see what's happening in, say, Seattle and Portland and New York City and Baltimore. Obviously, we're not that. But at the same time, our murder rate has almost doubled. Accidents and crime and petty crime and homelessness is definitely growing.
Yeah, and there's going to be, I've already heard of legislation that's going to be going in to help some of those things that are happening, like the petty thefts or like, even grand thefts when they're, smash and grab and these sort of things that are happening in our stores.
Gasoline and
stealing. So there's some things that will be in
converters.
Yeah, there'll be some things that are in the works for that. And honestly, I support our police, fully support them. And so, we had that half session where they were talking about defunding the police. Now, that's not how those laws came in, but they were detrimental in certain ways. And so,
As an influence.
Yeah, and on behalf of the Las Vegas Police Wives organization, I was able to kind of mentor them on how to go and speak their voices.
Because of your experience through Power to Power, you spoke to wives of officers.
Correct. And so they're a C3 and they can't act politically, but you can act alone. So I taught many individuals how to raise their voices and be a part of this. Hey, this is what's going on with our husbands. This is how this is going to affect us if you pass these laws, which essentially were meant to defend us here, but, chipped away a little bit of it. And so watching those and lobbying for that at that time, I was proud to do that. And I was proud to teach others how to do that as well.
Yeah. And then, you come from a police family background, and we had Stan Hyde on a little while ago, and I had asked him, would you prefer, because cops get killed by guns.
Yes.
So a lot of liberal, or I'm not even going to use that word anymore, liberal, because on a side note, anybody who gets the word liberal would die for my right of free speech. So these progressives no longer get to be called liberals anymore, in my opinion. But anyway, I digress. Stan Hyde was on, and, I said to him, would you feel safer in a community, especially as a cop, if everybody had a gun or if nobody had a gun? And he said he believes it's much safer if everybody has a gun, even from the perspective of police having to police a society of people who are armed. How do you feel about the Second Amendment?
I feel that everyone has the choice to carry and bear arms. And yes, absolutely. If you want to exercise that choice, then you do it. And I think everyone should have that choice.
And then is that limited in any scope? I mean, for example, whether you're talking about a fully automatic, semi-automatic, you talk about other things such as silencers or bump stocks or extended magazines. How fervent are you on the Second Amendment? Is that refer to tanks and rocket-propelled grenades, or does that only pertain to shotguns?
Well, I think that there's a lot of systems in place that, that I think what we forget about is when we're trying to put more red tape on something, that there are entities and there are laws and there are things that already exist that talk about those individual things and that police those individual things. And so I think at the basic level of what we have is stringent enough at this point. Obviously we're not rolling down the street in tanks, right. And there's laws in place that we cannot do that, and right. That's why. And so it even goes back to the school district on, it's just let's create this red tape issue, and then let's create more entities to solve this problem. When guys, we already have this in place. Right. Let's not forget what systems are already in place. I felt
that way with CCSD when they were talking about anti-racism policy, when we already have anti-bullying policy. Sure. And I don't care if a guy's making fun of a person because they're fat or have zits.
It's wrong either way, right?
Right, and I think it's disgusting. Whether it's racism or fat shaming or any
we shouldn't
of
have any of it.
And there should be consequences.
And that's what the policy is already, that anti-bullying policy.
Beautiful. And then where can people find out more about your campaign and stuff like that?
Okay, so I am everywhere. Yes, charliefornevada.com. And so that's FOR, not the number 4. And then...
You didn't get both?
Well, I'm sure we bought both.
Oh, okay, good.
That's my main one. Okay, and then Instagram and Facebook at charliefornevada. So that is where you can find me.
And you got some pictures, you got issues up there, you got the ability to donate, get to know you more, but of course that's what you got the Johnny Brew Show for.
That's right. And then also anyone, my number is up on there, and I don't mind it. Like anyone can kind of contact me, get a hold of me anyway.
I find it so frustrating when you can't find a candidate's phone number. Not even their own personal number, but just a phone number to get in touch with your campaign manager or to get in touch with somebody affiliated with the campaign.
I agree.
Why do you want to not be accessible? I think that's
if this is where you're going to run, if you're going to run for this, you need to be accessible. That's something I really, really want to help our constituents with.
Good. Well, usually I give you guys however long you want, 30, 60, 90 seconds. You talk to the voters, tell them why, especially in such a hotly contested primary, tell the Republican voters why they should vote for Charlie De La Paz.
Okay, well, I am a mother of 4 here in the state of Nevada. Like I said, I've grown up here. I went through K through 12 here. I've had a lot of experiences through our education system, and then became an advocate, through Power to Parent, for education, for school choice, for parental rights, first and foremost. And I am just truly passionate about preserving our state, because Nevada really is a great state. When I hear that people want to move out of here because of the way that our education is, I ask you to please stay and fight with me, because I will be here to fight forever. And I'm going to fight for my children and my grandchildren. And I really sincerely have, the experience that it will take. None of my opponents have the experience up there in the legislature like I do. And I did, all of my experience is grassroots, and it's on behalf of Nevada families. I was not a lobbyist for other corporations. I truly worked for all of you, and I hope that I get to continue to do that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you know, ever since the Johnny Brew Show came to fruition, I've been an admirer of your work.
Thank you.
And I really do appreciate it. So we wish you the best of luck in the primary, as well as obviously in the general election, should you get through the primary.
Yeah.
And you guys, again, I just wanted to remind you, we need you to like, subscribe, ring the little bell, do all that happy stuff. That's the only thing we're asking of you. We don't run commercials. We're not asking for donations. We're not doing any of that. We're here to get you the information so you can get to know these candidates better. Also, I wanted to remind you guys about our idea. Towards the end of August, we're going to have a parents forum, or teachers. Parents and Teachers Forum. So that way, if you are unable to resolve your issues with CCSD through the proper channels of getting in touch with your trustee or principal or superintendent, we want you to come on. We want you to tell your story. So that way we get these things together. And your stories will be what's driving how we interview these future school board candidates. There's three openings of the 7 in November. And we want to get these candidates to know your stories. So please, email us at thejohnnybrewshow@gmail.com. You can also text us at 702-501-5304. Look us up. Facebook, Common Sense Nevada is the public forum for you to talk about anything and everything you have on your mind. And we have, of course, the new CCSD Board of Trustees 22 and 24, where we're trying to just vet as many candidates, encourage people to run, and talk about issues that are pertaining only to the CCSD school district or education as a whole. Anything else I have to plug? Very good. Well, Charlie De La Paz, I've been saving this shirt until you came on. I think it's pretty hot.
That's pretty awesome.
All right.
I like it.
Best of luck to you in your primary, and
we're
rooting for the conservative message and your work. Thank you so much for the work you've done.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, my name is John Brookhagen. This is the Johnny Brew Show, Red Wave 22, and we will see you next week.